Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bloodstained Wings, and today it's time for our monthly palette knife challenge painting! And if you're not excited, I am. So, one of the things that a lot of other people like, I like them too, but other people like them a lot more than I do, and that is dragons. And so, I present to you a palette knife painting of a dragon in a forest. At fall time. Fall-ish time. So if you're ready to paint along, please feel free to whip out your palette knife. And the colors that I'm going to be using today are titanium white, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, yellow ochre, quinacridone violet, and burnt umber. So if you would like to whip those out, please feel free to do so. And let's get started. Hello, are you ready to start painting? I'm ready to start painting. So today, as you can see, and you saw in the intro, we're going to be doing a dragon in the forest, and hopefully we're going for like a magical, mystical kind of forest. I hope that's what I'm trying to achieve anyways. I probably should have painted this in black too, but that's okay. So we started with a gesso painting, so this isn't like palette knife only. It is mostly palette knife challenge. Mostly. We're dealing with a mostly palette knife. Obviously we are still starting with a brush as usual. I'm actually going to take a little bit of white and a little bit of quinacridone violet and make like a nice... I'm going to get a little bit of brown in there too. I don't want it to be so bright. Not so bright. We're not looking for lavender as much as we're looking for like a dull grayish kind of color. I just want to add like a little bit of like a background color to start with. I think it really helps to make a whole painting feel whole to start with a color. And then like move from there. So that's what I'm going to do, is just start with a color, so that when we add like whites and stuff, it like has a base to go from. I'm also hoping that this looks rather misty, and so to get that like misty look, you can't start with white, because you want to like add the mist as white. So we're going to try to do this. So we're just prepping the painting basically. If you have not already prepped your painting with gesso, please feel free to do so. Do you have to have as many trees, or do the trees need to be in the same places, and do you have to have branches? No. You can do this at your own speed and your own consistency. I think this is also going to help our dragon look like it's glowing, which is pretty cool. Although that was not my intention, it is giving that effect right now, which is pretty cool. Alright, so we're starting with this base of like a brownish purple kind of color. And I think that's going to be really important for later when we try to do like the river and like stuff. When you break the dam and release the river. Okay, there, Treebeard. It's a Lord of the Rings reference. Not that this is a Lord of the Rings painting, but that's a Lord of the Rings reference. Alright, I think we are just about done with the brush. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that in terms of brush work. So, should we start with the trees? Should we start with trying to make some mist happen? Let's start with trying to make some mist happen around our dragon, and we can see if this works. Maybe I will start with some of that darker purpley-ish gray color, and then like add the white to it on top. So I'm just kind of smooshing around with a palette knife. We're smooshing with a palette knife. This is smooshing. I tried to explain this to Eclectic Scribbles before, and I was like, I don't know how to explain this any more than we're smooshing. This is smooshing. Welcome to smooshing. So yeah, I'm just gonna add a little bit more smoosh of the dark color. This is gonna help to like give us something to go off of with the whatever it's called, the white. We're gonna add white. I'm just trying to like add more color and texture to like everything essentially, just to give it like that little bit more of like something to hang on to, because I'm gonna make it all like wintry and stuff. And there we go. Okay, we're gonna come back over and do the tree. So that tree doesn't matter. The tree does not matter right now. It will matter later, but right now it doesn't. So I'm gonna just try to add some like mist with a palette knife. This is my first time painting mist with a palette knife, I'd like to point out, so I don't know how well mist is gonna happen, but we're trying for it. It looks like a rock. That's not what I was going for, but you know, maybe if we just smoosh out the bottom. Yeah. It's really, apparently the secret to making things work right now is just smooshing it. So feel free to smoosh things. Should I smoosh this whole thing maybe? Maybe I should smoosh this whole thing. So the whole thing kind of has this smooshy effect. I think that worked better than I thought it would. So that's good. That's really good. That's what I was looking for with the like misty kind of fog. It's basically like coming from the dragon, which is really cool, I think. I'll try to add some more little smooshes. There we go. We're looking more smooshy by the moment. Alright, so that looks pretty okay. That looks pretty okay. I'm pretty confident with my okayness of that. I'm gonna add a lot more of the brown and purple mixture, but without the white. And I'm gonna try to paint the trees with this. It's gonna be a lot more brown, but that's okay. Alright, let's paint some trees. Let's paint some trees. Trees are easy to paint with a palette knife. So please feel free to do so at any point in time. Just paint some trees. I don't have to go over this entire thing. I just didn't like how the branches looked very visible here, so that's why I'm going over this one in particular. And I'm probably gonna do something like this and then this or something. And I'm gonna do some crazy things over here, but the idea is to like paint a forest essentially. So we're trying to like give it our all here and paint a forest. Eventually we're gonna come back in with like other colors and do other things, but for right now we are just looking for, I'm just mixing more of the dark color. There we go. These trees are going to be like in front of. See, you just gotta play around with it. For anybody who is new to this channel and hasn't seen the how to load a palette knife in any of the other ones that I've done, give me a sec and I'll show you. You can see I've done it multiple times. So you pick up your paint, you smoosh it down, you get it nice and thin, right? Get it off the palette knife like that. Then you come in, you grab a little roll of paint, just like that, on the end there. That little roll of paint, that is going to be what you're painting with. And what you want to do is to have the painting pick up the paint that you're putting down and like not have the palette knife actually touch canvas, which sounds difficult because it kind of is, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. And I want to preface that with, like, just because it's difficult doesn't mean you can't do it. Is it difficult? Yes. Can you do it? Also yes. There are many difficult things that people do all the time. Like giving birth. Giving birth is difficult. That's not an easy thing, right? Nobody said, oh yeah, giving birth is the easiest thing in the world. God, I did it on Tuesday and now I'm going to do it on Friday. Nobody does that. That's not a thing, right? So, just because it's difficult does not mean that you can't do it. It's not an excuse. I have one right here. It's going to be a little bit narrower because there's no other thing to cover. But yeah, I definitely think that you can do it. Don't be afraid of the palette knife. I find a lot of people are afraid of the palette knife and like, it's just art, you guys. Like, just do it. What's the worst going to happen? I say this all the time, and I'm going to say it again, but it's just a painting. What happens if you have a bad painting? You just have a bad painting. It's fine. It doesn't mean anything about you and who you are and anything about that. And you can paint over it and try again, and that's fine. It doesn't mean anything if you paint a painting that you consider bad. That doesn't mean anything, okay? Glad we had this talk. And I'm going to just mix some more so I can get this tree that's in the foreground. This guy right here. That guy definitely needs texture if he's gonna exist over here, you know. Just gonna hit my desk with my palette knife right here. That's what that noise is. In case you're hearing that. Gonna get that going right there. Now theoretically you want to paint your entire background before you paint your foreground, but we already did a lot of work on our background with this painting in particular. We kind of cheated because as you can see we started with the gesso painting, so I get to start with like texture. But you can see I did paint the fog before I painted the trees. And the reason for that is so that the trees are on top. Because you want your trees to be on top. Well, I wanted my trees to be on top anyways, so that's what I did there. Now, this is mostly palette knife, okay? You're gonna forgive me for using a little bit of a brush, but I'm gonna use my liner brush, going into that color that we've been playing with, and I'm just gonna add a few little tree branches. Just to keep going with this tree situation. If ever you're having trouble with tree branches, use your goop or whatever medium you're using. I use goop. This is the goop I use, Neomaglip. I'm not sponsored by them, but listen, it's good stuff, and I like it, and I like its consistency. I like the way that it flows and stuff, so that's what I use. It by no means means that you have to use that, just that that's what I use, and I find that it works really well with this technique. With the Bob Ross technique, you can use the like liquid clear or the liquid white. Either way, totally functions and is perfectly fine and usable. I find that the goop is, it maintains its consistency better, I guess. Like it doesn't thin it down as much. I don't know. I don't know words. But I find that while it makes it more like slick and stuff, you can still keep like a lot of the consistency of your thick oil paints. There we go. I mean, you spend so much money on these thick oil paints. You don't want to then be like, oh, but I'm never using any. I'm only going to use it thinned down. Well, why'd you spend all that money on the thick paint then? Right? That's my reasoning anyways. But I'm like, if I spent money on the thick paint, I might as well try to keep it thick. Also, I like the way that it is when it's thick, so... Can I say thick more times? Maybe add some more C's to the end? Anyways, that's why I use that. That by no means means that you have to, though. Adding more tree branches. So yeah, we're cheating a little bit in that the tree branches are not being painted with a palette knife, but don't worry, we're gonna cover most of them up anyways. So this is just to give us a place to put things. It also helps our like foreground trees to like match with the background trees, which is probably important so that it looks like it's all part of the same painting. Tree branch. If you ever have trouble painting with your tree branches, try rolling your brush in your paint, pulling it and rolling it like that to make sure that the tip of the brush is at a nice point. And then just wiggle it, just like wiggle. But don't try to make this perfect. The idea is to like make it as wiggly and like messed up as possible. That's what tree branches are all about. Adding tree branches. See, I get carried away with adding tree branches, and I'm not even gonna joke on that. I absolutely get carried away when adding tree branches. It happens all the time on my stream. I live stream, by the way, twitch.tv/bloodstainedwings if you wanted to join. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I spend a lot of time sometimes just painting tree branches. Whee. Okay, so we don't need much more than that, which is hilarious because that's like basically nothing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some red leaves. And we're going to have like some red leaves. And then maybe we're going to have some like yellow and orange. And then we're going to add white on top of it. We're going to have some fun with color. Let's mix this on my brush. Let's get like on my palette knife. Okay, I've got a lot of paint on my little roll of paint, quote unquote little. But it's got a whole bunch of different colors in that. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's like yellow. So there's yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, and cadmium red on my palette knife. And I'm just gonna kind of like drop in, yeah, some color. And just kind of get this so that I have them, you know, where I think leaves would be. And just kind of play back and forth with all these colors and just leave them like really, really unmixed on my brush. On my brush. This is a brush. Palette knife. On my palette knife. But that's the idea here, is to just kind of like play with the texture of the palette knife to give it this like fall vibe. Going for a nice fall vibe. Well, that was a good one. Let's not touch that one. And I ran out of paint. Which is not good, because we have to do the entire bottom as well. Wow. Yellow ochre. There we go. Okay. Grabbing a bunch of color. There we go. You can see that like it's picking up different colors and different variations of those colors throughout this whole thing. It's just really like getting different, getting funky. and I like that. That's something I am enjoying. Yeah. Let's get a little bit more on this guy right there. Not that much. There we go. One that goes across here. So you want to have some of them like crossing the trees, because like leaves grow all kinds of different ways, and so you want to try to represent all the different ways that like tree branches and leaves grow and stuff. All right, I think we're good up top. I'll add more white to it later, but I'm going to kind of come in here and add a little bit down here. Again, I'm just varying all of these colors together on my palette knife, so you're not missing anything. It is picking up a little bit of the darkness from the other trees that are there, and that's great because it gives us shadows. We love shadows. All right. All right. I like that. I'm gonna get a little bit of white and like mix it in with these colors and see if I can have like some more distant ones that kind of look like they're more in the distant because they're lighter. Should I have painted these first? Yes. Did I learn my lesson? Absolutely not. We're just gonna smoosh it in. There we go. There. So it looks like it kind of transitions from the darker color at the foreground to the lighter color in the back. Yes, yes. Okay, that's good. Just clean this part of my board here. Okay, we need this foreground one here to be slightly darker. So I'm not going to use the yellow in my mixture. And I'm just going to use the reds here to give us some. I like what happened on the foot of that tree there. I'm going to try to leave that as best I can because that looks really cool. Sometimes things happen and you're like, yes! That's what you want, so keep it. Accidents happen in palette knife paintings, and you need to just let them happen. You guys need to stop trying to control your palette knives. I mean, obviously, if you want to be like hyper particular and stuff, control your palette knife. Use a smaller palette knife, like I did with the poppies. I had a lot more control over that and was being a lot more particular. This one though, none of that. I want crazy, and I'm loving the crazy, so we're just gonna go with it. Get like a nice edge there. Excellent. Cool, very cool. All right, I'm gonna try to, without a brush, pull this down using my palette knife to kind of give this reflections look. All right, I think if I go over this with some white to just highlight some of these like little branches, just a little bit here and there, make it look a little bit more wintry. I'm being very delicate, just in case you're wondering why I'm not breathing. That would be why. There we go. A little bit of white on there. I think is really going to help it to look like the frost is settling in. And I think that's going to help us to highlight the ground, which is going to have a lot more of the white. There we go. It just gives like a little bit more texture and variety to everything. There we go. All right, and then we're gonna do one of my favorite things. So what, pray tell, is one of my favorite things? Well, it's doing waterfalls with a palette knife. I don't know how well this is gonna work in the overall painting, but I feel the need to have like a little waterfall coming out over here. Being like, hello, I'm a waterfall. And then from there, we can smoosh down all of this, and then our water line actually sank, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to thin down some white paint, still using my palette knife, but this time I'm going to be pushing very, very hard with my palette knife, which I don't normally do, but I'm going to bend the palette knife so that you guys can see. Can you guys see how bent that is? I don't know if you guys can see how bent that is. It's very bent. And the idea behind that is that you end up creating a little line across the edge there. It makes it look much more like water when you have that little edge. So I'm just going to scrape off a little bit from up here to continue to make sure that edge, yes, looks like it's right there on the edge. It's on the edge. I want more of this red. I don't think that that is enough on that side. So I'm going to just try to make that look better. But that's my little frozen lake situation, and I'm really enjoying it. I hope you guys are enjoying that too. Just going to have a little mound coming out over here. It just clearly needs a little bit more. There we go. And then we'll grab a little white and do a little dance on top. I don't know if that's a rock or more leaves. I have no idea. But that's what I decided to do. So, do I want to add any more little, maybe just a little bit more of the white through here to give it that, like, yeah, this is water kind of look. So you can see that there's like water shifting and moving. I just want to have like a little bit in there as well. It just gives it like a little extra movement, I think. So that right there is done. That's done. This is, I know, we didn't even paint the dragon. I just left it all in the gesso, but it looks all like mystified and like all misty. And I really like that. I think it looks very mysterious. We didn't highlight the tree at all. Oh, maybe we should highlight the trees. I'm gonna mix, I think, a little bit of the yellow ochre in with some of the white. I'm gonna go back to the purple, I think. Maybe the purple, maybe the yellow, maybe just the white, maybe just the white. Maybe we'll just do straight white. And we'll just come in here and we'll highlight some of these trees. There we go. I gotta definitely highlight the big one in front. I'm hitting my desk, and it is making it very difficult to paint this tree in particular. There we go. Now it looks like a birch tree. That's what we're looking for. All right, let's come in here. Just a little bit to this guy. That's my heat coming on, in case anybody wants to know. Why, yes, it is still winter. That's a thing. That's a thing we deal with here in the Canada lands. Winter. Don't know if you know that. Don't know if you've heard the word. The word is winter happens in Canada, and it just continues to happen constantly, in fact. All right. I think this is now done. I don't think there's anything else I want to do to it. Now this is using a lot of thick paint. It will take a long time to dry, which is classic of palette knife painting. So if you're going to do a palette knife painting, please make sure you leave a lot of time for the paint to dry. General recommendation if you're using goop is about 2 weeks. I know you're like, what? 2 weeks? I'm like, yeah. If you don't use goop, it's a lot longer, like a month. So use the goop, makes it dry faster. Which is hilarious that 2 weeks is fast. But it's true. Talk to a lot of other oil painters and you'll see what I'm talking about. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys really enjoyed this forest dragon in the late fall kind of painting. If you guys want to leave a comment as to what you want me to paint next, please feel free to leave a comment. I love suggestions, and I hope you guys know that you are loved and you deserve to be loved. Thank you all to my Patreons whose names are scrolling by for supporting me, and I will see you guys next week. Bye! Mwah!